The security guard handed Daniel a cardboard box with his family photo still inside it, and before he could even understand what had happened, his employee badge was cut in half in front of everyone. 30 seconds later, the doors of the company where he had worked for 11 years closed behind him forever. Across the street, a little girl standing beside her bicycle watched the broken man wipe tears from his eyes. What nobody knew was that one phone call from that child would destroy the careers of everyone who had humiliated him. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please like this video, share it with someone you care about, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to Soul Tales for more emotional stories that remind us that even the darkest moments can lead to miracles. Among his neighbors was a cheerful 8-year-old girl named Lily. She lived with her mother in the apartment next door. Since her father traveled frequently for business, Lily often felt lonely. Daniel and Ethan would invite her to play board games or share dinner with them. To Lily, Daniel was more than a neighbor. He was the kind uncle who always remembered her birthday and never forgot to ask about her school projects. That terrible Tuesday began like any other day. Daniel arrived at work carrying a folder of maintenance reports. However, the atmosphere in the office felt strange. People avoided looking at him. A few minutes later, he was summoned to the manager's office. Inside the room sat his supervisor and 2 executives from headquarters. They accused him of negligence after an expensive system failure that had happened during the weekend. Daniel tried to explain that he had not even been on duty that day and had warned management about the faulty equipment months earlier. But no one wanted to listen. The company had already decided that he would become the perfect person to blame. Within 10 minutes, he lost everything. No severance package, no investigation, no chance to defend himself. Only humiliation. As Daniel left the building carrying his small cardboard box, he worried about rent, school fees, and how he would tell Ethan that their lives were about to become much harder. When he reached the apartment building that evening, Lily noticed his red eyes immediately. Children often see pain more clearly than adults. She sat beside him on the staircase while he forced a smile and told her that he had simply had a difficult day. But children also understand sadness. When Daniel went inside his apartment, Lily quietly walked back to her room and picked up her mother's phone. She made one call. It lasted less than 2 minutes. Then she went to sleep. The next morning, Daniel woke before sunrise and searched online for jobs. He sent applications everywhere, but rejection emails began arriving almost immediately. Companies wanted younger workers. Others wanted people with different skills. Some never replied at all. 3 weeks passed. His savings disappeared rapidly. The refrigerator became emptier every day. One evening, Daniel sat at the kitchen table trying to calculate how much money remained. Ethan was pretending to do homework, but the little boy could hear every sigh his father made. Then there was a knock at the door. Outside stood Lily and her mother carrying several grocery bags. Daniel tried to refuse their help, but Lily insisted. She said neighbors take care of each other. Daniel's eyes filled with tears because he had spent his entire life helping others and had never imagined being the one who needed help. After dinner, Ethan finally smiled for the first time in weeks. That night, Daniel thanked God for kind people. He still had no idea that something much bigger had already begun. The next morning, chaos erupted inside the company that had fired him. Luxury black cars suddenly arrived at headquarters. Employees whispered nervously as an elderly billionaire stepped out. It was Arthur Sterling, the founder and majority owner of the corporation. He rarely visited the office personally. In fact, many employees had never seen him. Managers rushed to greet him, assuming it was an ordinary inspection. It was not. Arthur entered the boardroom carrying a small photograph. The picture showed Daniel helping a little girl fix her bicycle. Arthur placed the photograph on the table and asked a simple question. Who fired this man? Silence filled the room. Finally, Daniel's supervisor raised his hand. The billionaire's expression changed. Arthur then explained something that shocked everyone. The little girl next door to Daniel was his granddaughter, Lily. She had called him 3 weeks earlier and cried on the phone because the kind man who always helped her family had lost his job unfairly. At first, Arthur thought it was only a child's concern. But because Lily never asked him for anything, he decided to investigate. The investigation uncovered something far worse than wrongful termination. The system failure had actually been caused by executives who ignored safety warnings and falsified maintenance reports to protect their bonuses. Daniel had tried repeatedly to prevent the disaster. Instead of thanking him, they sacrificed him. Arthur was furious. Within 1 hour, the supervisor and several executives were dismissed. An internal audit began immediately. The scandals spread throughout the company, but Arthur was not finished. He wanted to find Daniel. That afternoon, Daniel was fixing an old toaster for an elderly neighbor to earn a few extra dollars when a luxury car stopped outside the apartment building. Several people stepped out. Among them was Arthur Sterling himself. Daniel nearly dropped the screwdriver. He thought they had come to accuse him of something else. Instead, the billionaire shook his hand. Then he apologized, not through lawyers, not through assistants, personally. Arthur admitted that his company had failed him and that decent people should never pay for the mistakes of dishonest leaders. He offered Daniel his job back immediately with a promotion, back pay, and a leadership position overseeing company safety operations. Daniel stood speechless. For weeks he had wondered how he would feed his son. Now his entire future had changed, but what moved him most was discovering who had made it happen. Little Lily stepped out from behind her grandfather. She looked nervous. When Daniel realized that she had made the phone call, tears rolled down his face. He knelt and hugged her gently. Sometimes heroes do not wear suits or carry great power. Sometimes they are simply children with kind hearts. A few months later, Daniel returned to work. This time, employees greeted him with respect. The company culture began changing under his leadership. Safety procedures improved, honesty was rewarded, and workers finally felt heard. At home, life became peaceful again. Ethan smiled more often. The refrigerator was full. Laughter returned to their apartment. Every Sunday evening, Daniel, Ethan, Lily, and her family would share dinner together. They had become something more than neighbors. They had become family. And every time Daniel looked at the little girl who saved his life with a single phone call, he remembered one important truth. The world can be cruel. Good people are often overlooked, but kindness never disappears. Every act of goodness plants a seed somewhere, and one day, when you least expect it, that seed grows into a miracle. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Soul Tales so more people can hear stories that remind us to never stop being kind. And before this story ends, please leave a comment with these words: kindness always comes back. Because somewhere in this world there may be a tired single parent, a lonely child, or a struggling neighbor who simply needs one person to care. Daniel lost his job in a single morning, but he gained something far more valuable, proof that even in our darkest moments, kindness has a way of finding us again. And sometimes all it takes to change a life is one small phone call from a child who refuses to let a good person suffer alone.